I beg to move that this House has considered the future basing arrangements of the Type 26 frigate. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Sir Roger. As the Member of Parliament for Devonport, its dockyard and naval base, I'm proud to be standing here again to make the case for Devonport, the largest naval base in Western Europe, to be home to all the Type 26 frigates, as well as, I hope, the Type 31s and the remainder of the Type 23 frigates with tails. As the son of a Devonport-based mariner, I know how important a strong defence is to our city. Plymouth is a proud military city, but at the moment it's living under a cloud of the possibility of defence cuts. We live, all of us, in uncertain times. With the rise of Russia, new insurgent technologies and tactics destabilising countries across the globe, autonomous warfare, cyber warfare, piracy and old foes investing in their militaries. I believe the best deterrent against a rearming and resurgent Russia is a strong Royal Navy, and I make no apologies for making that same case today, and the case that many have heard me make in this chamber and in others, that we need more and more capable frigates, preservation of our amphibious capabilities, and a decision to baseport all our new frigates in Devonport. Given the fact that a decision on baseporting frigates may well be imminent in the upcoming Modernising Defence Review, I hope that this debate will help convince the Minister of the compelling case to base all the new global combat ships, the Type 26 frigates, in Devonport. In my remarks today, I want to set out why I believe there's a compelling and convincing case for Devonport, why the Type 26 frigate is a platform we can be proud of, and talk about the critical cog in the Royal Navy, the backbone of the senior service, the men and women of the Royal Navy, and why basing them and the frigates in Devonport is the right thing to do. But this isn't just my view, it's the view of the cross-party Devonport Task Force coordinated by Plymouth City Council. Whether Conservative run as it was up to May or Labour run as it has been since May, there is a cross-party support and consensus and a determination to win these frigates and protect our amphibious ships, Royal Marines, and deal with the legacy of the old submarines from all parties locally. I know the Minister values cross-party campaigning, and that is what I hope we can demonstrate today. Devonport is already home to half the nation's frigates. We are the base for the Royal Navy's anti-submarine warfare Type 23 frigates. The Type 23s with tails are the front line of our efforts to counter increased Russian submarine activity in the North Atlantic and protect our northern flank. Happy giving way.
Thanks very much for giving way on that point. Given NATO's revised view of the North Atlantic and the High North, as the members just alluded to through the maritime strategy, I can understand making the case for his own constituency, but we do not see some sense in making sure that some of the Type 23s and 26s are based at the likes of Rosyth, for example, to give us that extra cover to the north. And we've seen many examples of incursions from Russian ships of late. So it would make strategic sense, perhaps, to base some ships, maybe not the whole fleet, but certainly some ships in Scotland, and particularly in Rosyth.
I thank the member for that intervention. I think he'll forgive me if I disagree with baseporting all the frigates there, but I think in particular with the Type 31Es that we'll come to in a moment, the idea of forward deploying them and basing them in different locations rather than just their baseport might be a good one that he might want to pick up on. Devonport, as I've been talking about, already has the skills and expertise of basing the Type 23s. Indeed, it's arguable we already have Type 26s in Devonport. And I say that because HMS Argyle, a Type 23 frigate that's equipped with much of the tech of a Type 26, is already one of our ships there. The hulls may need renewing, but this Type 23 frigate, that I was very pleased to visit on choppy seas earlier this year, is already carrying the combat systems, the tech and the operational control functions of a Type 26 frigate. And indeed, much of the crew of the first Type 26, HMS Glasgow, are already probably serving on Devonport-based Type 23s. With quick access to deep water of the North Atlantic, Devonport is ideally suited to counter the threats in the Atlantic and support CASD and carrier strike. But Devonport has another ace up its sleeve. We are home to the world-class Flag Officer Sea Training Establishment under Admiral John Clink, who retires shortly and to whom Plymouth and navies across the world, including our own, should be indebted for his leadership. FOST is the final hurdle for a ship and the ship's crew to pass before being sent on missions around the globe. It's a jewel in the crown of the British Armed Forces, and like all good things in Plymouth, we rarely tell anyone about it. As a proud Janner, someone born in Plymouth and who lives in Plymouth, I feel I can say this. Plymouth all too often hides its light under a bushel, then hides the bushel. That has been the case with FOST, and I think we should speak loudly and proudly about its global role. With FOST, experience of basing anti-submarine warfare frigates and its geographical position, there is a good case for allied nations using Devonport more as a quick reaction base for surface ships, and I would encourage the Minister to look creatively at NATO forces being invited to use Devonport's superb facilities in the coming months and years ahead. So, Roger, it is the people of the Royal Navy that are the backbone of the fleet. The crews of the Type 23s with tails have already made Devonport and Plymouth their home. They've found schools for their children, found homes, and have a real and genuine connection to our city and the areas around Plymouth. These are the same people who will be providing the leadership, specialist trades, expertise and crews for the new Type 26 frigates. Happy giving way to my neighbour.
Mentions the crew and the importance of them to the local economy, and very much part of our culture. You'd probably be aware of a study that either the council or the university, I forget which, did about 10 years ago, showing that surprisingly quite a number of the crew of any ship base-ported in Plymouth or anywhere else, I imagine, live elsewhere in the UK. But actually there is a hardcore, a significant minority who do live in the Plymouth or in the port area, and they have a very significant role, do they not, in boosting our local economy, being part of our fabric locally.
I thank my neighbour for that contribution, and he is exactly right. It's really important we value those people who serve on our ships, and importantly, those people out of uniform, the civilians who support the base porting of those ships and the jobs that come from it there. As I was saying, many of the warfare and technical specialists who will use the combat and operation systems on the 23s and 26s already live in a PL postcode, and as South West members will know, the PL postcode extends far and wide across the far South West, as it should do. So there's no need. And I think preserving those roles and those people in our region is paramount in this basing decision. Confirming Devonport as the long-term naval anti-submarine warfare centre of excellence would support forces, families, as well as strategic efforts. Happy giving way.
I thank the honourable member for giving way and congratulate him on securing this debate. But it's not, I'm sure you'll recognise it's not just the PL postcode, it's also the TQ postcodes of South Devon, where many of the workers whose skills that would be of benefit to the future Type 26 programme live, work and commute to Devonport each day. And that's a base port in Devonport would also be a boost for the wider regional economy, not just for Plymouth.
I thank my near neighbour for that comment, and foolish of me to forget our friends up the A38, which I hope will be the M5 soon. Give way to my colleague from Northern Ireland.
Forward as well, and I think it's important that we in this House look towards the very, very proud service history that the Honourable Gentleman refers to in relation to his constituency. And having never given cause for concern is due serious consideration to having the frigates based here to ensure job security, but also, I believe, to send a very clear message, and that's important, that the modern defence strategy incorporates the ability to strategically place in strong defence areas, and the Honourable Gentleman represents one of those areas.
It's important that we build on the areas of expertise we already have, and in Devonport and Plymouth and the wider South West we have a military expertise and a close connection with the armed forces, which aids recruitment as well. The context around this debate matters as well, as we don't just have frigates at Devonport Naval Base, and serviced in the dockyard. We have amphibious ships as well. When the news of the threats to HMS Albion, HMS Bulwark and the Royal Marines was first mooted last summer, I called for clarity and for ministers to rule out those cuts. Some described me as scaremongering at the time. The threat was real to those ships then, and sadly is real today, as was the threat to HMS Ocean, our amphibious helicopter carrier, which will shortly leave Devonport for the last time and join the Brazilian Navy as PHM Atlantico. That was when I launched the campaign to fight for more frigates in Devonport. I believe that we didn't need just one extra Type 23 with a tail transferred from Portsmouth. We needed a commitment to make all the Type 26s and the Type 31s Devonport-based as well. At the time I said I'm no longer content with Devonport being on the defensive, and today call for all new frigates to be based in Devonport alongside our world-class amphibious ships. Most of the Type 31E frigates, which will join the Type 26s as part of the replacements for the 23s, will be forward deployed. The Type 26s will not be. So their basing arrangement is perhaps the bigger win for any locality, even if the Type 31Es may be with us sooner than 2026 for their larger sister ships. I also believe that they should be based in Devonport, even if it's more of a paper basing as base porting in the traditional sense due to the forward deployed nature that many of those new lighter frigates may deliver. In January, I led a debate on the government's national shipbuilding strategy in Westminster Hall and made the case to the Defence Minister about why Devonport is a world-class naval base and why it should be home to the Type 26s. But the petition, the energy that came around the will to base the frigates here is also an energy from the local community in the far southwest to protect our amphibious warships as well. That petition that I launched has attracted 30,000 names, and the Minister will be pleased to hear that there are 34 people in his own constituency that signed the petition, wanting to preserve the amphibious ships and the Royal Marines, although the bulk of those names did come from the far southwest area. Sadly, since then, we've seen further threats to our city, with the confirmed announcement that Stonehouse Barracks, the spiritual home of the Royal Marines, is closing, and the Royal Citadel, all in the constituency I represent, as well as job losses as Babcock restructures. Happy to give away, please.
I think he may be slightly mistaken. The announcement about the rebasing strategy was actually in 2015, long before this process took place. And would you agree with me that actually, if that goes through, and this isn't about party politics, actually governments of all colours, if that actually happens, if the Type 26s can be base ported in Plymouth, we will actually see a growth in the military for the first time in a generation under this government, and that's to be welcome.
Well, thank you for your contribution. What will actually
be welcome.
Well, thank you for your contribution. What we'll actually see is a replacement for the Type 23s we've got with Type 26s. So the risk is actually that we lose ships if we don't get the Type 26 decision, rather than we gain extra ships as part of that. And the honourable member will know that sadly we're losing HMS Ocean, so we're already one large ship down in terms of our naval-based contingent. I think the Modernising Defence Review is a chance to present a new vision for defence in Plymouth, to back our jobs and secure our future. I think it needs to be used as a positive way of encouraging more people to see their future in not only the Royal Navy, the Royal Marines, but also in those industries that service those ships and our fighting forces. To do that, we need certainty over the future of HMS Albion and HMS Bulwark and the Royal Marines, something the Minister knows I feel strongly about from the volume and frequency of questions that I have asked him over the months since he has taken up his role. But we must be under no illusion that we cannot have the new frigates based in Devonport as a sop for losing the amphibious ships. This is a campaign that's being fought across Plymouth on a cross-party basis on three fronts: frigates, amphibious ships and Royal Marines, and our legacy submarines. We need to win on each of them, and we cannot afford to lose any one element. Now, the Minister will know that I've had concerns about the Type 31E and how lightly armed it is. But let me say I have no such concerns about the world-class Type 26. It is a ship our nation should and will be proud of. Being built in Scotland, I'll give way.
It's being built in Scotland, because that allows me to ask the honourable gentleman, does he agree that the fact that the Type 26s are being built on the Clyde shows the importance of Scotland's place in the United Kingdom, both for the UK's defence capabilities and also for the shipbuilding industry in the Clyde?
I agree entirely, and I think the remark that the apprentice that will work on the last of the Type 26 frigates has not been born yet shows actually what a long-term commitment to British shipbuilding Type 26 programme represents, but also how important it is that we secure other shipbuilding contracts, such as the Solids Fleet Support Ship, to be built in British shipyards, which I know is something that many people from across this House believe should be the case as well. The Type 26 will be a world-class ship. My only concern was that there were too few of them, though, or to be precise, 5 too few, that we're not replacing all Type 23s with a Type 26. But there is no doubt that this is a ship that is world-class, can be put in harm's way, will have the capabilities of a modern navy, and will be the envy of our allies and a worry to our opponents. Numerically, our fleet is smaller compared to Russia or China, but in terms of capabilities, we are miles ahead. Indeed, these are ships that our allies may well sail as well. I hope Canada chooses the Type 26 platform for their 6 new frigates, and I hope that our cousins down under order 9 of them for the Royal Australian Navy's future frigate programme. I know that there is cross-party support for selling not only the design, the platform, but the expertise in the supply chain, because not all of the jobs in exporting the design of these frigates will be in building hulls. It is in the weapons systems, the combat systems, and the other support items that go on the frigate that provides value to the entire British supply chain. I do not want to use any of the time saying why other bases shouldn't work for the Type 26, because I think Plymouth and Devonport's case is compelling sufficiently. Portsmouth is a good base for the carriers, the Type 45 destroyers and the OPVs. Devonport should be home to the frigates, to refits and to the Royal Navy's amphibious capabilities. Not all the Royal Navy, just the best bits. Back in my maiden speech in June, I called for more and more capable frigates, something I believe the Type 26 delivers in terms of its capabilities. Shortly after winning the election, I wrote to the then Defence Secretary asking for a new Type 26 frigate to be named after Plymouth. This was a campaign started by my predecessor, the former Conservative MP Oliver Colville, something I supported as a candidate and now continue as an MP. I want to see one of the new City class named after Plymouth, but there's little point in naming a Plymouth if she's to be based in Portsmouth, as I'm sure the Minister understands. Now, along with others, I've been working hard to lobby ministers to make the case for Devonport. This has been a team effort, and it is in that cross-party spirit that I think our case is strongest. But I've also been lobbying colleagues on my own benches, and I'm really pleased that Labour has backed the campaign, pledging that a Labour government would base all the Type 26 frigates in Devonport. Whether that Labour government is sooner or later, the Shadow Defence Secretary is absolutely right when she says Devonport's case for the news frigates is compelling, comprehensive and convincing. I agree with her on that. Plymouth's 3 members of Parliament, all present here today, the Labour leader of Plymouth City Council and the Conservative leader of the opposition are united in our belief that Devonport is the best place for these new ships. I've been calling for cross-party working on this issue since I started this campaign last year. Ministers have told me that this is the approach they want to see from Plymouth on this campaign, and I recognise that a strong, united campaign from Plymouth is vital in persuading the Ministry of Defence to decide in Devonport's favour. I believe we achieve more when we work together and less when we are divided. And ministers, I hope, will have heard by the end of this debate a united voice from Plymouth and its surrounding areas that Devonport is the ideal location for the Type 26 frigates. From 2026 onwards, I want to see HMS Glasgow and her sister ships alongside in Devonport, together with our world-class amphibious ships. In setting out the case for Devonport, I've also set out the cross-party and cross-Plymouth support that this campaign enjoys. I believe that basing the new frigates in Devonport is the right strategic choice, it's the right defence choice, it's the best option for forces families, and it's the decision with the right choice for Plymouth, Devonport and our nation. I realise there are many tough decisions the Minister will have to make in his role, hard decisions, life and death decisions, but I don't believe this is one of them. This should be a simple decision and an easy choice for the Minister to make. Devonport is the best location of the Type 26s, and I encourage the Minister to make that decision in our favour at the earliest opportunity. Thank you.